Test 1, 2. As long as they get rid a bit sometimes, every once in a while. But you see, we're modulating right now at 0, so we're pretty good. And as long as there's no spike or when you went like, it should be good. Test 1, 2. There's something else coming in. Test 1, 2. Oh.
Alright, welcome everyone. There's going to be some people still trickling in. Wendell, no Robert, say no, hey! Sorry, I just thought I'd do that. So this is a special meeting of Agricultural Affairs Committee, meeting of Thursday, December 10th, 2015. So we'll call the meeting to order. This is I say a special meeting. It's specifically to consider two items: the Mantic Secondary Plan and the Mud Creek Sub-Watershed Study. The purpose, so one of the things, before we get into this, one of the things that we changed this term of council was the location of ARAC meetings. Normally what we would do is we'd meet at City Hall for 8 months of the year, and then during the summer months we'd kind of rotate through the rural wards. It was one of the things that we decided to stop doing, mainly because we could never align the agenda with the location. So we had a meeting at the tail end of 2014 in Vars, where every single item on the agenda was west of Manotick. So every single agenda item required all the people who had to go to the committee to drive 50 minutes just to get to the committee. So we went with the centralized location of Ben Franklin Place. It's worked out quite well. But one of the key commitments that I made at the start of the term when we did that was that on specialized items we would come back out to the community. And I think this certainly qualifies as one of those items. The secondary plan review. This is the first review of this plan since its inception in 1997, and it is a significant item for the village of Manotick. And we went through a 2-year process to look at this. Just want to thank the members on the consultation group that we had. Klaus Beltzner is here. Todd Sandrock. We had Noel Norenius with the Manotick Culture Parks and Recreation Association. Liam Swords, Tom Miller. And we had Aaron O'Connor was on it for a period of time, but that was transitioned to another individual, which ended up being Hugo Lalonde temporarily. And I don't know if I'm missing anyone. Oh, Donna Smith with the Manotick BIA as well. So thank you to them. We had a couple meetings, several meetings throughout the process, and very much appreciate their input. I think we met as recently as the middle of November before getting to this point. So We'll have a couple speakers, but first we're going to get to the presentation. I'll just have to read the statement first. So this is a public meeting to consider the proposed zoning bylaw amendments listed as item 1 on today's agenda. For the item listed above, only those who make oral submissions today or written submissions before the amendments are adopted may appeal the matter to the Ontario Municipal Board. In addition, the applicant may appeal the matter to the Ontario Municipal Board if Council does not adopt an amendment within 120 days of receipt of the application for zoning and 180 days for an official plan amendments. A comment sheet is available at the door for anyone wishing to submit written comments on these amendments. So any declarations of interest? None? So we have 2 items on the agenda. Like I said, it's the Mantic Secondary Plan and it's the Mud Creek Sub-Watershed Study. Because they're interconnected, we're going to treat them together as one. We will vote on them separately at the end, but in terms of presentation, in terms of public speakers and any questions that we have, we'll treat them all together as the same. So because there is some correlation between the two and some of the presentations might touch on both items. So to begin, we'll start with the presentation. Rose Kung was the lead on the Mantic Secondary Plan and Amy McPherson was the lead on the Mud Creek Sub-Watershed Study. So you get to take it away.
Great. Thank you very much. My work on the update of the Mantic Secondary Plan was coordinated with Amy. And Amy and John Boyle participated actively in the project and helped develop policies and mapping that related to Manotick. So we're here tonight to answer questions. John's here to answer questions. We also have in the audience our 2 consultants, Kaya Chervany and Mark Baker. Consultants we hired to work on the connectivity, parking, and traffic aspect of the project. So if there are any questions that come up they're available to answer. And we also have Glenn McDonald, who's the Director of Planning from the RVCA, and they greatly helped both our projects. So this is a location map, shows you Manotick. The village boundary is shown in dark line. We have First Line Road, Century Road, Bankfield, Rideau Valley, and then the edge of the island right there. You'll notice that the Rideau River runs right through Manotick, and it's a part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's a major feature in Manotick.
The Mud Creek Sub-Watershed Study area includes most of the village of Manotick, as you can hopefully see from the mapping. A sub-watershed is an area of land that is drained by a single creek system, in this case Mud Creek. Our study area in this case also did include a very small catchment adjacent to the Mud Creek system at the south end of Manotick, which is now known as Mahogany Creek. So the total study area is just over 6,500 hectares. And most of this is agricultural area. There's a fair number of woodlands. Most of the watercourses, including a large amount of Mud Creek itself, are municipal drains. So it's a very agricultural landscape. There are no known significant wetlands within this study area, but there is a very large geological feature known as the Carr's Esker, which has been identified as a significant groundwater recharge area. It runs right through the study area, basically along First Line Road. It's very important to the study area both as a source of clean, cool water to Mud Creek and as an important recharge area for the local aquifers of groundwater, which many people here, of course, use for drinking water. Manotick is the largest settlement within the study area. So yes, the white road bisecting the study area, that is the 416, yes.
We undertook extensive public consultation during this project, included meetings with residents, various groups, business people, and other interested folks who wanted to share their knowledge with us. Consultations included meetings with the public consultation group at milestones during the project, We had stakeholder meetings that involved the consultants, and we also had 3 large public meetings. So what does a secondary plan do? It's a planning document, planning policy document that guides development over the next 20 years. And in creating this long-range plan, there was a vision. And the vision for Manotick included protecting village character, reinforcing the role of the village core, recognizing the presence of the UNESCO World Heritage Site, improving cycling and pedestrian connections throughout the entire village, and addressing parking, traffic, and also providing a framework to improve the sustainability of the village where you have a broader range of housing types. So, and I believe that the updated Manotick Secondary Plan reflects this vision. We've incorporated many of those things into the plan. And these are the topics that are covered in the secondary plan. This is a land use plan which shows proposed uses where uses will be located. Height within the entire village will be restricted to a maximum of 3 stories. As you'll see, the pale yellow area here, that's a residential area. The brown area, another low-density residential area. You have the SDA lands, which are parts of it are under development, and you have the mahogany lands, which is under development. There are 2 areas that I wanted to highlight. One is these areas here, sort of this brown type of color. And these are designated residential medium density. It's going to allow for more broader range of housing, including ground-oriented housing such as semis, townhouses, and the amount of detached dwellings will be restricted. I also wanted to point out the village core, which is this pink area. This slide shows a breakdown of the village core. It's quite extensive compared to most villages, and we have 5 character areas that comprise the core. Each one will have its specific policies, but in general, the core is the only area in Manotick where apartments and mixed-use development will be permitted. I wanted to point out Manotick Main. It's called the Main Street Character Area. This is going to be this is and will continue to be the commercial spine in Manotick. So here we will expect to see commercial uses and mixed uses. Commercial on the ground floor, residential above. Any existing homes will be allowed to stay there, but no new ones. They would be built somewhere else. And I wanted to mention also the Muse, the local shopping center, which is located in this area. And we have policies and we've made recommendations which will allow for it to expand in the future. Previously, I mentioned connectivity. This is an important part of the plan because we had heard earlier from residents that they wanted to improve connectivity in the village. And this includes improving pedestrian and cycling facilities. So this plan shows proposed new sidewalks, paved shoulders, pathways, cycling routes. And all of these will be implemented either through planned construction in the road right-of-way or through the development review process. The plan also identifies on a separate map that we don't have right here ways to better access and to view the UNESCO World Heritage Site, the Rideau River. As part of the connectivity work, there were traffic and parking recommendations that were put forward, and the plan identifies these, and here you'll see some examples, which which must be considered as part of roadworks or through the development review process. And here we have some other ways that connectivity will be improved, including demarcation of pedestrian crossings, bike channels, so on. The one map that I don't have that I'll just be speaking about is servicing. The plan identifies how the village will be served in the future. Public water and wastewater are available in limited parts of the village now. It's the city's expectation that over time, public water and wastewater will expand through the local improvement process. And at that time, these services will generally be installed at the same time. Yes. And so resulting from the update of the secondary plan, we have two broad categories of recommendations: official plan amendments and zoning bylaw amendments, as you'll see on the screen. These changes to the official plan include text changes and mapping changes, and they're all identified here. In addition, there are zoning bylaw amendments that we've proposed generally along Manotick Main, Bridge Street, and affecting parks through the entire village.
Okay. One of the recommended official plan amendments that we're asking for tonight is the update to the city's Natural Heritage System Overlay, Schedule L of the official plan. We've identified these changes through the Mud Creek Subwatershed Study. The primary one is the extension of the significant valley lands. When we reviewed the updated topographical mapping available, we discovered that much larger sections of the valley met the city's criteria for significance. So we are extending the significant valley land along Mud Creek and its major tributaries in Manotick. We've also added a linkage which corresponds to the watercourse setbacks identified on the Mahogany community lands. So that's a linkage along one of the tributaries of the Wilson Cowan Drain. And we've removed some features from the overlay that were shown not to meet the city's criteria. So those are the major changes to the official plan that we're recommending. It's important to note, of course, that the changes to the overlay do not affect the current land uses or the zoning. Those continue. The only change is that, of course, the overlay serves as a study trigger if and when a development application is received, plan of subdivision, severance, site plan, zoning change. At that time, we would look at the overlay and it would help to identify that an environmental impact statement would be required at that time. So these changes that we're showing here on Schedule L are also reflected in Annex 2 of the secondary plan, which provides some detail on what the components of the natural heritage system are here. And we also had some other recommendations in the sub-watershed study that can be implemented over time by the city, by our partners at Rideau Valley Conservation Authority, by interested local residents, such as stewardship activities on their lands. The city and the RVCA have grants and programs available to support landowners who want to do stewardship. We also have recommendations for the protection of the Carr's Esker, the significant groundwater recharge area. Again, that occurs during the development review process. There will be studies required for developments on or near the location of the esker. We note that it is important here in Manotick. There are several creek valleys running through the village. It's important that residents remember to respect the setbacks associated with those areas. There are some pretty steep, unstable slopes, and so all of the development done to date has identified setbacks along those creeks. Those are shown in the secondary plan on Schedule A, and it's important for residents to remember that those setbacks are there for a reason. We don't want people having sheds and valuable bits of property falling into the creek if there's a slope failure. So the other opportunities that were identified are for the city to consider in future infrastructure renewal projects. There are some opportunities to retrofit stormwater treatment within the village of Manotick itself. So those will be things for us to keep in mind.
So following this meeting, there will be a city council meeting to consider this report, which is scheduled for, I believe, January 27th, 2016.
Any questions before we get to before we get to delegations? No, so I just wanted to, before we do that, I just did want to say one thing. Rose at the start of the presentation said that explain what the secondary plan is for. There are two things that came up through the consultation process that the secondary plan doesn't do. One of them was with regards to the agricultural lands around the village, in terms of a protection between what is now Manotick and what is the growing Barhaven area. And then the other thing is traffic concerns, the transportation issues that came up through the process as well. We have ways to deal with those things. On the agricultural issue, we do have a project underway at the city that's been going on for a little while called a LEAR review. It's a land evaluation and area review. Sorry, it wouldn't be a LEAR review because that would be two R's the same. But nonetheless, so exactly. So it's a LEAR update. So the point of that is we're looking at the designation of our agricultural lands across the city, and to ensure that we're protecting your class 1s, 2s, and 3 agricultural lands. The one benefit about Manotick and the land in between Barnsdale Road and Bankfield Road is that it's predominantly class 2 agricultural land, which means through the city, through the province, it is quite highly protected. So we're looking at shoring up those figures as we go into the next official plan review, which likely won't be for another 3 or 4 years. But that's the process that we're on. I've been looking at what other municipalities have done in terms of agricultural protection. It was very interesting to see Waterloo went through a 6-year process, fought at the OMB, spent about $1.7 million, but what they ended up doing was coming up with a protected countryside designation that isn't open for review in their minds. It's not a designation that they would just put in place and have it reviewed every 5 years. This is a permanent designation. This is the land that we say is agricultural, is to be protected, and it's something that I think we need to consider, especially south of Canada, south of Hopeside Road, and certainly lands that we see as class 1 and 2 anywhere in the rural area, because the most important thing that we should be focused on is protecting your prime agricultural lands. The other thing I mentioned, transportation issues. We did have a number of things come up over the course of the consultation period. One of them, of course, related to trucks. One of the things that committed to doing at a public meeting that we hosted here in October was we're going to develop a working group on the truck issue, and to look at in the South End area how can we optimize the usage of the Strand-Armstrong Bridge, or the Vivian Memorial Bridge, working with the community, working with the Councillor DeRuse, and working with Councillor Kakish on seeing how does our truck route network work in the south end of the city. Is there proper connectivity? We know there's not. So that the plan is to see what we can do. Where do the trucks want to go? Instead of looking at it from a point of let's get the trucks out of Manotick, we should be looking at it from a point of where do trucks want to be? Where do they want to go? Because to be honest with you, majority of them do not want to be in Manotick. They want to find better ways to get to the bridge and get through Barhaven that way, but they just can't get access to that bridge. So we need to work on that, and that's something that will lead up into the next transportation master plan as well. To deal with some specific ones, I do have a motion. Technically, I'm supposed to hand over the chair to Councillor DeRuse, which I will do, and then he'll hand it back to me, and then I'll move my motion. So,
Thank you.
good? Okay, so I'm no longer the chair. So I can move this motion. I'll just introduce it now so that you know before the speakers come forward. But whereas the Manotick Secondary Plan Review is focused on updating the land use designations and planning for future growth within the village, and whereas transportation-related concerns were brought forward throughout the consultation process, and whereas those concerns cannot be addressed by any policy changes within the secondary plan itself, and whereas the community would like to use this opportunity to implement several changes to address these concerns, therefore be it resolved that the following changes be implemented. Extend the 60-kilometer-an-hour zone on Bankfield Road from its current start-end point 350 meters east of Potter Drive to a point 470 meters west of Potter Drive. That would be at the bridge at the entrance where you come into the village boundary. There's a sign, "Welcome to Manotick." That would be the point that we would start that. create a 40-kilometer-an-hour zone on Mantic Main Street from a point 20 meters south of Bridge Street and Maple Avenue to a point 80 meters south of Eastman Avenue, and create a community safety zone on Bridge Street for Mantic Public School and on Long Island Road for St. Leonard Catholic School. Zones will be extend from 150 meters on the approach and departure of the school property lines. The intent of this community safety zone is that when speed enforcement is done, if you are caught in that area, the fines are doubled. So and signs will be put up indicating that it is a community safety zone, so that when we do go out there and do enforcement, I know that we recently did some on Bridge Street and caught a number of folks. Those fines will be doubled. Hopefully, it's more of an incentive to be mindful of the speed as you travel through the village. So that's a motion that we'll vote on at the end. So right now we're going to get to our delegation. Sorry, just a quick question for Councillor Alchantieri.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question to our staff. In your presentation, I didn't see any discussion with the BIAs. So we have a BIAs in Manatic. Have they been consulted? So there's nothing anywhere mentioned in your report there. So.
Yes, the executive director of the BIA was a member of our consultation group. So the BIA was involved throughout the process. I attend each BIA meeting as well, all except for the one tomorrow morning. But so they were involved in the process as well. Yeah.
Okay, and about your motion, you want us to ask question now or toward the end? Because
we'll go with the delegations first and then questions.
okay.
So our first delegation is Klaus Beltzner. So seeing as we have two items, but we're combining them as one, Klaus had registered to speak on both items, so we'll give him a bit of extra time. Normally it's 5 minutes per person, but seeing as he wanted to speak on both items, we'll give you a bit more time.
Thank you, Chair Moffat, and welcome to Manatic, everyone who is not from Manatic. Really nice to see everyone come out again, and staff and consultants, thank you very much for showing up and participating. Really appreciate that. It's been a long journey. It started way before 2012, and it's come to a conclusion, which is good to see. For an old person like me, this length of time does matter. Now, we have a long road still ahead of us in terms of implementation of the plan. And so I'm looking for opportunities wherever I can to leverage whatever works we're going to have in the Manatic area towards implementation of the plan. And so I'm hoping that ARAC is with us on that theme. I thank Councillor Moffat very much for the motion that you've put forward. As we talked over the phone, I'll still quibble a little bit about the length of the 40-kilometer zone on Manatic Main, because we have indeed expanded the village core right up to Bankfield. So I feel strongly that we should have all of Manatic Main Street that is in the core be 40 kilometers and not just have a small stretch that is 50 between Bankfield and Bridge Street. We've talked about, I understand the councillor's point of view very much, and I just want to again express the view that the village would be very happy to see 40 kilometers throughout the village and not just 90% of it. So that's the comment on that point. The thrusts for me in the secondary plan have been primarily on intensification of the core to have more people live in the core, to make it a lively core. We don't like the idea of having the streets roll up at the end of the day, because there aren't any people who actually live in the core, just come and visit to go to the restaurants and the bars, and that's all wonderful, but we would still like to have people living in the core, and this plan provides a framework for moving forward to that. I see that the gaps have been expanded to include lands on the other side of Giant Tiger, and that's a location where the zoning is being changed to allow for 3-story apartment buildings that would bring more people in, and there's also property on Main Street that has that same designation. So that moves us in the right direction, and intensification of the core is indeed a necessary step forward and a welcoming step forward. It's something that we've asked for when the mental development came in as to where the concentration of development should be. We said it to be in the core, we're now coming to that point. So I'm very happy about that. I'm happy about the focus on connectivity and walkability. That's something that has changed over time in terms of a desire from the community. At first, the desire was just to have roads that we can drive and walk and cycle on. But as you have growth and more traffic, it becomes less safe to do so when you're walking and cycling, so you need to have care taken to provide those facilities. And with a village like Manotick, where things have been built some time ago, it means retrofitting. So we take every opportunity we can when we touch something to provide those facilities. And Long Island Road is one of those areas when the water main does come in, there will be a sidewalk, something that's really badly missing. There are other areas where the need for sidewalks and pathways and cycling lanes are important, none which is more important than Bridge Street. Bridge Street is the connecting road for the various parts of Manotick and the region itself. And we have very little pedestrian and cycling infrastructure, in fact no cycling infrastructure on Bridge Street. And so I'm looking forward to the fact that we're going to be repaving, when I say we, the city is going to be repaving, my goodness, I can't say we there, can I? The city is going to be repaving Bridge Street, and I'm looking forward to an opportunity to discuss with staff and Councillor Moffat and anyone else who would want to listen, the opportunity to add a cycling lane, opportunity to perhaps widen the sidewalks while we're doing that kind of work. Something to move us forward to the implementation of the secondary plan that we have in front of us. So I'm looking for every little opportunity to make that happen. So I'll be in people's faces, I know, it's not going to change, to make that happen. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm pleased with the overall framework of the plan, so that's all good. We haven't talked about the design criteria for the development. I just wanted to make note and let people know that that is entrenched in the plan. It is something that we worked hard, and Councillor Moffat especially worked hard to get entrenched in the plan, so I'm really pleased with that, and I thank you for it. 3-story limit, we've had many discussions in the past, so I'm glad that that was brought forward again and entrenched as well. Something that's very important to the village, to maintain the character of the village. And I'm also pleased with Councillor Moffat looking at other jurisdictions, especially Waterloo, with respect to the idea of a protected land designation. And I think Council would be well served to look at that designation overall for various areas of the city, because there is a benefit to protecting certain lands. On the question of the pathways, we have the Mud Creek study, and that's the other part of the yes, item number 2 on the agenda, the Mud Creek. Way back when, there was the idea of having a pathway along Mud Creek, and some of the property owners deeded property along Mud Creek to the city. I guess there was the region at the time. I can't remember the timing exactly, but it was deeded to the municipality with the intention that that land be used for recreational purposes and for protection of the environment. So the two things have moved forward. We now understand from the Mud Creek study that the pathway can't be a contiguous pathway in Mud Creek lands itself. Some of the pathway elements may have to be part of the road system above the creek. And wherever that happens, I'm going to ask that serious consideration be given to providing the pathway along the side of the road. So it does become a separate pathway, noted as such and designated as such. In the wintertime, I have the fortune of going down to Venice, Florida, where they have exactly that kind of construction. I'll be happy to provide diagrams and pictures of what I'm talking about. But that would go a long way to move forward the idea of the implementation of the pathway network along Mud Creek. So again, I'll be looking for opportunities wherever possible to talk to people about implementation of that idea. Overall, I think it's been a positive process. In fact, it has been a very positive process. Consultations have taken place with the community over a long period of time. In fact, to the point where I'm told that if I ever put in my column Manotick Secondary Plan again, people are going to just delete the whole thing. I mean, it's gotten to that point. So I may be the last man standing on that. I don't know. And so congratulations to everyone. Congratulations to you, Councillor Moffat, and congratulations to staff and consultants for doing a really good job. I'm very pleased with you, and the community is pleased with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Klaus. I should have mentioned that Klaus is here in his role as president of the Manotick Village and Community Association. Do we have any questions for Mr. Belzer? Okay. Councillor DeRuse is happy that Klaus is happy now. Klaus lives in Councillor DeRuse's ward, so a happy Klaus is a happy George. So thank you for taking the time, not only throughout the process, but also to be here, and your countless efforts to work with me on a number of issues throughout the village. It's very appreciated, and I don't imagine that we won't be working together closely in the future as well. Even after you step down as president of the association, you've been quite involved in the community since I've been elected, and it's much appreciated. It's very helpful. So thank you so much. So our next speaker is Mr. David Gray. Thank you, Mr. Gray. No problem. So just press the button there in front of you. The mic will turn red. Just the big oval button. Thank you. So you have 5 minutes.
I'm here tonight as a resident of on Bankfield Road. My property at 1202 Bankfield Road is one of the boundaries. The western boundary of the property runs right along the Wilson Cowan Drain, and this drainage, part of that drainage is included in the Heritage System Overlay Schedule L. And in August, we received a notice in the mail, along with a copy of the Mud Creek sub watershed study, and a map dated July 20th, labeling Schedule 1 to Amendment XXX of the City of Ottawa's official plan, which displayed new gray shaded areas along Mud Creek and also along the Wilson Cowan Drain. These are the new additions to the Heritage System Overlay. Now, these new shaded areas of the drain abutting Bankfield Road and our property appear to encompass approximately, according to the map shading, about 45% of this property, including my present septic field, and about 60% of the present location of my residence and a barn on the back of the property. Because of these developments, and I don't agree why that area should be considered anything special. I'd like some clarification on the following points. What constraints do these changes have on the removal of large, mature trees that may pose a hazard to buildings on this particular property? What restrictions does this change have on any improvements or replacement of the present septic system for my residents? What implications do these changes pose to the improvement and construction of any addition to these present buildings at this particular address? And also, what do these changes, how would these changes affect the sale of this property with respect to any new ownership? I don't understand what is so significant about the particular area of the Wilson Drain adjacent to where I live as significant valley lands or linkages, because there are no exotic plants or rare tree species on this land, and the only timber of any worth is a couple large black cherry trees. The ice storm of 1998 did considerable damage to the trees then standing, and the remains of these currently still litter the creekside area of this Wilson Cowan drain. The drain does, however, provide feeding for nesting sites for mallard ducks during the spring, and I've only seen a few snapping turtles also in this habitat, so I really don't understand what is so significant about that area to be designated as for changes on a heritage map. That's not to my concern this evening, so if I could find some answers for those, I'd be quite happy.
Mr. Gray, I'd be happy to get, I don't know if Amy has any response right now, if you can respond, because do you have those, you have those written down there, but
Yeah.
you can submit those to me as well, or by email, or?
Yeah, sure.
That's the first time hearing, so it'd be good to get that, and then we can get you a more formal response, but perhaps Amy can touch on it right now.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The short answer is there will be no impact whatsoever to any of the items that Mr. Gray has mentioned. There are no restrictions on tree cutting anywhere in the rural area at all. There will be no impact to any of the replacement of the septic or to the addition or change to the existing buildings. The only change is if development is proposed, there would be, as I say, the requirement for an environmental impact statement to determine what the development limit would be. And I appreciate certainly your concerns, sir, about the extent of your property that's being shown in the overlay, but that mapping is not the final mapping of the actual feature itself. That mapping is somewhat generalized because we have not been on the property ourselves, of course, and so the development limits are set at the time of the development review when site-specific information is taken to determine what the safe limit of development would be. Now, as you'll note, the sections of the Wilson Cowan Drain upstream and downstream of this property have previously been identified as part of the city's natural heritage system. That they've been identified as such in our plan since 2012 when this mapping was first introduced. And so basically as I say, we reviewed our mapping. The city's criteria for determining the significance of valley lands is entirely predicated on the slope. So this section of the drain, the slopes meet the criteria. So that's why it's been identified as basically a continuous feature through the village. And, well, at least as far south as Potter Drive, it is a significant valley land. And again, that is, as I say, based purely on the slopes. It's not based on any, flora or fauna on the property, although certainly, at the time of the development review, if a development application were made, the environmental impact statement would determine what of any significance was on the property and whether there were constraints to development at that time.
All right, thank you. So what we'll do, Mr. Gray, so that's a preliminary response that you got there. What we'll do is we'll make sure that you get a formal response, so a formal written response to your questions. So submit your questions to me, and then we'll make sure we get a formal written response. And then if there's any follow-up with that, we'll make sure that occurs as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our third speaker is a Mr. Noel Nerinius. If you want to know about the history, I won't. I usually make fun of him, but I won't. Noel and I are around the same age, so we've lived in Mantic around the same amount of time, haven't we, Noel?
More or less.
So Noel is representing the Mantic Culture, Parks and Recreation Association. Was also involved heavily in the process and was a member of our consultation group. Noel, you have about 5 minutes, unless I want to cut you off.
I've only got 40 or 50 pages, so I think we're all right. No, I'm only kidding. I wanted to say to you, Chairman Scott, that I appreciate this opportunity, and to the members of the committee as well. It's worthwhile undertaking here. And I speak too because, like Klaus, I was allowed to be part of the consultation group too, and it was an educational process. There's no doubt about that, and I'm glad for it. I'm not going to carry on with a sort of off-the-record version of this. I do have the thoughts that our group has presented or will present to you as the committee. And the Manotick Culture, Parks and Recreation Association, of which I am president, has been involved in the planning process since its inception. And I must say that I am grateful personally to have been made part of that consultation group, and also to staff who were involved in this undertaking, and especially to Rose Kung. The MCPRA is principally interested in the areas of the village parks, pathways, trees, canopy, the access to waterways, especially the Rideau River, public gathering places, and the environment more broadly. To that end, we would like to applaud you, Chair Moffat, and the members of City Council, for that matter, as well as staff. The MCPRA especially supports the following aspects of both the Manotick Secondary Plan and the Mud Creek Sub-Watershed Plan. And these are the rezoning of the respective park spaces, resulting in greater clarity and protection for those significant areas. The recognition of the importance of continuing to create a walking and cycling community. And I thank my friend Klaus for being kind enough to be with us on that. The inclusion of a policy to maintain existing street trees and encouraging village forest renewal. Maintaining the historic village character area, which includes the historic Mill Quarter as a pedestrian-friendly cultural and tourist location. Recognizing the significance of the Carr's Esker near the SDA lands as an important groundwater in-charge area requiring further hydrogeological studies to better understand this incredible resource. Provision of updated mapping of the natural heritage system and environmental constraints, including surface water features and significant woodlands, constraint lands such as floodplains and erosion areas. The focus on development of the village, and through the official plan, the protection of nearby agricultural land and open space, more specifically the moratorium on estate developments, outside the village boundary to better protect the integrity of the village itself. More specifically, we strongly support the proposed pedestrian connection linking Miller's Point development through the Stinson development when it proceeds to a safe and signalized intersection at Bankfield and Rideau Valley Drive. The pathway that's proposed in the SDA, where feasible both on road and off-road, that links to the pathway system in Manotick Estates. And that keeps changing in terms of, if I can digress a little bit, initially the first plan for that saw ways that the pathway could extend completely through that on the shore of the bank, if you wish, of the Mud Creek. Subsequent investigation says that there have to be some alterations, but the project itself must go forward because it is a pedestrian connection that we need. So, the protection of the woodlot in the Mahogany community, that's the one along Century Road East. The section on sidewalks and multi-use pathways, item 2 in there, the city will consider new sidewalks, paved shoulders, and multi-use pathways in road reconstruction within the road right-of-way where possible. Well, we applaud the paved shoulders provided on Rideau Valley Drive north of the village to Prince of Wales, and anticipate that when Rideau Valley south of the village is going to be rebuilt or repaved, that these cycling spine amenities will also be put in with an extension as well on the sidewalk as well. And the wayfinding markers that are suggested for the pathway connection between Long Island and David Bartlett Park, a project in progress, as it were. And the inclusion of the Mahogany Harbor concept and the proposed boardwalk in South River Drive Park, both laudable. The sub-watershed plan indicates that the water quality of Mud Creek has gone from fair to poor, with elevated levels of total phosphorus, E. coli, and metals. We support all actions to improve the water quality in that creek. However, appreciating the nature of this planning process, the MCPRA has several observations and/or suggestions that we'd like the committee to consider. We understand that the acquisition of the woodlot in the Mahogany community may be imminent, and that Minto has no desire to develop that area, but the language in the plan would appear to permit development, and we feel that that would not be in the long-term interest of the community. It's unclear whether the Percival and Antochi Lane developments will protect the waterfront for public use. Again, we feel that stronger language would be of greater clarity for the developer, the city, and the public. Objective number 5 of section 1.2.2 objectives says, provide an implementation strategy for the secondary plan, but there is no indication of when or how this would be accomplished. Yet we feel that the aspect is critical to the plan's success. While the plan rightfully identifies the significance of the historic Mill Quarter area as a public space, there's nothing in the plan that seems to address the need to have an overall design to protect the public space. That is, there is a risk of getting space that doesn't work when signs, planters, dumpsters, benches, or gardens are added at random. It could be a better approach would be a landscape design plan for the entire area that's needed, so that both the city and the well-meaning volunteers can follow it. And last but not least, David Bartlett Park. As a large regional park on the Rideau River, it needs a vision and a concept design to meet the full needs of the community. I could go on for days and days, but I won't. So, anyway.
Thank you for that. No, just a quick, so on the, you had 5 points at the end. I think there's a couple I have to respond, we'll have to get back to you on. But I know that with the woodlot, that is something that the city is pursuing with Minto. Of course, development to that end of the village is likely 15 to 20 years away based on the current pace. But nonetheless, that is something that we're working on. If it does specifically, if it doesn't necessarily say that we wouldn't include development in that woodlot, that's something we have to look at when we get that deal done. It's in both the city's interest and Minto's interest in the community to get that deal done, to have that transfer of that land, and that is how the city and Minto are both. They're both on the same page on that. It's just a matter of progressing to a final resting point. On the Percival and Antochi Lane developments, the way it's set up in here is those properties will be they're designated for medium density, but should they be developed, it'll be through they'll have to go through rezoning site plan process. There will be a public process to that, and the goal of the city will be to obtain public use to the waterfront, but there will be an entirely separate public process for any of the developments that you see with and Rose mentioned them. There was the Stinson property at
North
Valley Drive and Bankfield, and then of course the property down by Kelly Marie and the Antochi Lane property, which is much smaller, but still it will be subject to a development plan when that time comes. And certainly public access to the water is important in the village because we actually don't have that much of it. The river runs through both sides of the island, of course, and there is somewhat minimal access to the water in our village, which is unfortunate, but it's something that we want to improve on in the future. And then with the David Bartlett Park, in terms of looking at a longer vision for the community, that is something I do want to work on with the community groups in the village, yourselves, the MVCA, and including the David Bartlett Park Dog Walkers Association, who are the sponsors of the park, to look at what we can do there to meet the needs of all the different parties that are interested. So thank you for submitting this. Thank you for writing it down and giving it to me. We'll get back to you on some of the other things that you mentioned, just because they're a bit more specific.
One thing I would add to that, Chairman Scott, is that of course, the MCPRA is currently working on a program that's going to see water access points within Manatee community signed properly with a new and exciting and whatever else you want to call it type of sign. That
So when the Manatee Culture and Parks and Recreation Association are completed with this project, there will be signs throughout the village that specifically show where the access points are. I mean, there's multiple ones on the island. I'm sure everyone is aware. This will bring attention to that so that people are aware as to where they can access the water. And certainly the MCPRA has been heavily involved in trying to bring forward a public dock facility along Main Street at the Mahogany Harbor. That goes back a long time.
it does. It goes to the other members of the community too as well.
Yes.
Certainly the BIA,
Yes.
places like that. And it will come. It may be 100 years away, but it will come. I promise. So.
I still have the Mantic Messenger at home from 1997, where it's on the cover, it's on the front page, and so hopefully it's sooner than.
We'll reprint it in color this time.
That's good. Thank you very much, Noel. Thank you for being a part of the process. So we don't have any other public speakers. I know Councillor Chantieri had a question. That's fine. Yeah. Any question on either the plan, the subwatershed study, or the motion that I put forward?
First of all, let me begin by congratulate you, Mr. Chair, because it's good to come to a meeting and see the residents are happy with the work we do. So it happens sometimes. So even to see some of the few folks where we normally don't see them complimentary, they're happy tonight. So it's great. On your motion, Mr. Chair, you talk about changing the speed in those areas. Is that just for future consideration? Like I'm trying to understand, because I thought we have process in the city for changing speed on our road. It has to be, I think 66% of the residents live in those areas agree to that change. I see Amira in the crowd. Isn't that our policy, Amira? Okay. Okay, I would ask you, Ms. Yeah, okay, that's all. Just because we get asked quite often when we go to a community to reduce speed, because a lot of people think reducing the speed is make it safer, which is not necessarily true sometimes, but nevertheless, just take a look at it, that's all. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
I can elaborate on that a bit. The two in particular, Bankfield Road and Mantic Main Street. Studies done on Mantic Main Street in terms of 85th percentile show that the 85th percentile is 49 kilometers an hour versus where you'd want it to be maybe 40 to justify a 40 kilometer an hour zone. You're right, there is another process where people could sign a petition, but you actually can't do the petition on a arterial road, and both Bankfield and Mantic Main are arterial roads, and so you can't actually do the petition process on those two roads. So you'd have to then do the 85th percentile, and they both don't qualify. So one of the things that we did with Bankfield Road was it was specifically asked that it be reduced to 60 kilometers an hour from all the way out to Prince of Wales to where it turns to 60 now. The 85th percentile down at the west end of the street, which is between First Line Road and Dan Murphy Ford, the car dealership down there, it was quite high. There was really no way we could justify lowering the speed limit there and actually achieving any sort of difference in the speed traveled. Whereas the point that we're talking about here, which is 470 meters west of Potter, there is a natural change in the road, at how it dips down. It goes over the bridge before it rises back up. There's more residences there. There's no residences west of there until you get to the actual 60 zone near Prince of Wales. And the other part of it is that's the village boundary. And we come up to Lockmaster and Potter. It's an intersection that will never meet warrants for signalization or any sort of traffic, well, not calming, but in terms of any sort of signalization at that intersection. So creating the 60 zone also gives them a bit more of a comfort level merging onto the road. There is quite a lot of traffic on Bankfield Road, and this will help alleviate some of those concerns. And then one of the big things too on this road is that 10% of all traffic that comes down Bankfield to Bridge Street are truck traffic. The nice thing about trucks whereas some people don't agree with me on this, they actually drive the speed limit. So, so when you have all the studies we've done in Bankfield show the trucks drive the speed limit. If you lower the speed limit, the trucks will be lowered, which generally lowers the overall speed. So that's where we're coming from on this. That's why we're doing it this way. If I could do it through the 85th percentile method, I would have done it already. We spent a lot of time on this. I was first asked about Bankfield probably 3 years ago, and was quite hesitant before we finally came up with a solution that could work and be supported by the community and by myself. So that just provides you some background on that. Any other questions on Councillor DeRuse? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to take a few moments to thank you and for your extensive work on these two projects. And it's your leadership, it's really showing here in Manatic tonight, and working with the Community Association and the BIA and all the other organizations. These are two massive projects, and it took an extensive lots of time. I know there is a lots of volunteer, like Mr. Klaus and I'm sure Mr. Nolan and everybody else, that they put a lots of hours from their private time to be on this committee and working with the city staff. I congratulate the city staff, Community Association, and your leadership on this. Also, I want to touch base on a little bit on the speed. Yes, the city has a policy. The city will say where we need to reduce speed, but I know I'm very confident that the community associations working with the councillor, sometimes there is an area where we need to reduce the speed to make sure our roads are safe, and no one knows the street better than the community association and the councillor himself. So I want to just congratulate you on this work, and I will be supporting you on this.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Roos. I'm not the best at taking compliments, so I'll just tell you that I paid off both Noel and Klaus. So I don't know if there's any further questions on the two plans. Just in summary, this was a good process. I actually enjoyed it. I think there was we haven't had the best luck with secondary plans in the Village of Manatic since the first one was drafted in 1997. I think there was a lot of skepticism that we had to get through to begin this process to see that it was worthwhile. I think there was residents in the village that said, "Well, what's the point?" I think we tried our best to show what the point was. The main goal at the start was to focus on the village core. The last thing anyone wants to see in Manatic is an expansion of the village boundary, whether that's west, north, or south. It can't really go east because there's somewhat of a waterway, and then nobody wants to go into Osgood Ward, so we just don't go. He just complimented me, and I made fun. That's so wrong. So it really comes down to where are people going to be? Where are people going to go? Where are people going to live in our village? How do we maintain a strong, vibrant core? We've got great businesses in Manatic, and a lot of them weren't there 10 years ago. Black Dog, I was just last year, celebrated Black Dog's 10th anniversary in Manatic. The Manatic Gastropub, which used to be called the Main Street Cellar, just celebrated their 5th year anniversary. These are places that weren't there 15 years ago when Manatic became part of the city of Ottawa. And it doesn't seem that long ago, and to think that those things weren't there, it's hard to imagine our village without those. And it's hopeful that if we can bring more people to the village and put them in places that make sense, then it'll be a bright future for Manatic. We'll be able to continue to see growth in things like the businesses in the Manatic Mews. And we have such a unique, we offer such unique services here. We have the gingerbread man. We have the Manatic, the My Toy Shop. We've got the spice store, Chili Chili's, that people come from all over the city to come out to. And it's very unique. And there's always new ones coming in. V's Cupcakes is relatively new, and they do a great job where they are. And that used to be a bunch of other things. I mean, there's constantly an evolving door at some of the places, but it's always unique things to Manatic. And the more vibrant village, the more people are here, living here, the better that this village will be. And like I said, we don't want to see it expand. We want to see the village be a strong village and still maintain that village feel. So not growing out, but growing maybe inward and upward is I think is the goal here. You'll see in the future we will have plans come forward for this village. This document sets out how we'd like to see those develop, but ultimately there still will be processes where these plans do come forward to the community. So I expect we will be here talking about specific properties, talking about the Stinson property, how it gets developed, talking about the personal property, talking about Antachi Lane. Once phase 2 for Minto comes forward, we will be here again talking about that. So there'll be plenty of steps in the future to deal with how Manatic grows, and I do expect that the community will be a big part of that, as they were every step of the way through this. We hosted 3 specific open houses with this plan. I hosted 2 additional meetings to deal with topics that are specific to, so let's say, vacant lands that we have in the village, and also the traffic meeting that I hosted back in October 5th. So I don't want to keep you here all night, but just thank you to the members of council, members of Agricultural Affairs Committee to come out here. Thank you to the community and to staff for your work on this. It's very much appreciated. Yeah. Oh, we don't normally do that, but considering I'm lenient. So right now, and just to clarify that, the question, although somewhat out of order, it's okay. The question was about the gaps. There's a gap section which does allow for higher density as sort of a transition zone out of the single lot development into the core. It's the 3 properties that are the other side of Giant Tiger. It's 1185 Beaverwood, 5544 Scarfield, and 1178 Maple. If I get those addresses correct, I think I have them right. Those 3 are being redesignated to accommodate more growth, but they aren't being rezoned. So they're just being redesignated. So if somebody wanted to come forward on those, they would still have to rezone those properties. We aren't giving them a blanket zoning. We're just saying that this is something that if there's a rezoning in the future, we may want to look at how we develop that. Those properties would all be developed on services. So, are the lots, if one of the lots happens to be quite large, it would accommodate more growth. Would that be an ideal section for more growth? That's something that we'd like to look at should a rezoning happen. So that's why that's there. All right. So on the motion. So first of all, the motion, the motion on the traffic motion. I'll just read. Carried. Thank you so much. That's easy. I don't have to read it again. And then on the report, so that the Agricultural Rural Affairs Committee recommend council approve 1 official plan amendment 162 to replace the existing Manotick secondary plan with a new secondary plan for Manotick, and to update various schedules and a policy in the official plan as set out in document 2. And 2, an amendment to the zoning plan, zoning bylaw 2008-250 to implement the new Manotick secondary plan as detailed in document 3. On the item, carried as amended. And item number 2 on the agenda, of course, was Mud Creek sub-watershed study, that the Agricultural and Rural Affairs Committee recommend council approve the Mud Creek sub-watershed study attached as document 1. On the item? Carried. Thank you. So we don't have any in-camera items. However, I do believe that Klaus Belzner has signed up to be for the open mic session. Is that correct? One of the unique things about ARAC is that we have an open mic session. Other committees don't have it, but we allow folks like Klaus just to come and berate us with random stuff.
I love this open mic session because we actually have 5 minutes. I do have 5 minutes. Thank you. It was George. Well, I'll harass George at the next ward meeting. What's important to me, and I believe to many residents here, and certainly to the whole of MBCA, is to find a path to implement this plan. And the coming year we'll have the opportunity to see Bridge Street repaved. And I can't remember if Bankfield is also on that list for next year. Not yet, probably the year after. But next year, Bridge Street. Bridge Street is in so much need to be redone properly. And I know there isn't all the money in the world to do that each time around, but my worry is that it's going to take another 10 years before we touch it again. So let's do as much as possible on that. We have substandard sidewalks crossing the bridges. They're 1.2 meters wide. You can't even get a wheelchair to go across that without falling off, and the curbs are pretty high. So we need to do something there. We don't have any cycling lanes on Bridge Street, and yet it's designated as a preferred cycling route, and we need to do something there. So here's an opportunity for us to do a redesign of Bridge Street as part of, as much as we can, of the repaving. So I'm going to be pushing on that, and notice is given. There are other opportunities as we touch things that the Community Association and Knowles Group as well, because it deals a lot with the pathways and the sidewalks, that will be pushing to get as much as possible implemented as soon as possible. And every time the city comes to do something, we'll ask it to do a little bit more. And I think that's fair game, I think. So again, thank you very much, and we will continue talking. And I know there are a number of points in the secondary plan where a dialogue is going to be continuing and has been recognized to continue. So thank you again.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the fair notice on your onslaught on the city to extract more money from us. No, we do. I mean, I think it's, the key thing there is that you don't know until you ask, right? And I think in a lot of projects, road resurfacing projects across the city, we managed to do one on Donnelly Drive to do a reconfiguration and make the intersection safer. It was simply just a road resurfacing project, but we were able to do something a bit more to make that section safer. So we do try to look at those opportunities as much as we can, and I'll certainly be working with our infrastructure services department to do so in the village in consultation with your group, of course. We don't have anyone else on the open mic session, so close that. Notice is a motion. I know Councillor Blais had a notice for the next meeting, which is Thursday, February 4th.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Therefore, be resolved that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommends the Council approve the installation of stop signs on McNeely Road, Golf Course, and Whispering Willow Drives, and complete and associated works required to establish a four-way stop control at this intersection.
Thank you. So we'll be dealing with that at our next meeting of ARAC. Any other notice of motion? Seeing none. Any inquiries? Seeing none. Other business? None. Adjournment? Carried. So thank you. Our next meeting will be on Thursday, February 4th. I will be a day over 35 at that meeting. And it'll be at Ben Franklin Place at 10 a.m. as usual. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for coming.